Okay, so it looks like participants adding have slowed. So I'm just gonna get started. So I'm gonna ask everyone to mute. And we can take a look at the agenda for today. So if everyone can just take 1 second to mute themselves. There's a note here to, I think it looks like everyone has added their name, congregation, role in the chat, but if you haven't already, take a moment to do that. And I think we have a good amount. So thank you all for being here. This is your first training of S4 program. I hope you've all already spoken with your coach Valerie, who's here. I think you have. We're really excited to really kick off this program and offer a really exciting learning opportunity for you today, and start the projects that you'll be working on for your congregation. And we're really, really excited to learn more about them today, which we will, as you'll see in just a little while. So first off, I'll just look at today's agenda with you for a moment so you know what will be happening during the 3 hours that we'll be together today. And we'll also be meeting tomorrow. So we had a few minutes for everyone to arrive. And then next we'll be having introductions from our two trainers, Donna Scopper and Gianfranco Grande. And then we'll be hearing from each congregation that's in the virtual cohort that's on the call today. After that, we'll be taking a quick 5-minute break, as I'm sure we all need at that point. And after we come back, we'll be talking more about the internal context of each of your congregations for the remainder of today's training. We'll hear contextualization of an exercise that we'll be doing from Donna, and then we'll be moving to breakout groups within your congregations, and we'll be reporting back on those exercises and conversations that you have. And after all of that, you'll have completed your first day of the first training of this program. So first, I want to introduce the two trainers that you'll be hearing from today. You'll all have already met them at the orientation that most of you have already attended in November. But the first is Reverend Dr. Donna Scopper, and the second is Gianfranco Grande. Donna is one of the founders of Bricks and Mortals in New York City. She was for 15 years the pastor at Judson Memorial Church and is currently the pastor of Orient Congregational Church. Before that, she was at Coral Gables Congregational Church in Miami and Yale University. She teaches leadership at Hartford Seminary, which is now renamed. I forgot to write the new name down. And she has written 39 books, most recently Remove the Pews. Gianfranco brings over 25 years of experience in management of nonprofit organizations and campaign capital fundraising to his role as Executive Vice President of Partners for Sacred Places. Educated at the Vatican Seminary, Gianfranco has worked with more than 1,000 community-serving urban congregations. In 2012, he was awarded the Richard Nickel Award from the Institute of Architects, Illinois. And over the last 20 years, he has successfully helped to raise over $80 million. In 2014, Gianfranco was inducted into the board of sponsors of Martin Luther King Jr. College of Ministers and Laity of Morehouse College. And he was most recently appointed to serve as alternate to the president of the Council of Religious Leaders for Metropolitan Chicago. So there's a lot that you can learn from both of them, and we're really excited to have them both here today. Also, you should have your emails from the emails I've been sending out, but I'll be providing their contact info at the end of both trainings too, so you can reach out to them for any further questions that you have or any conversations you want to continue to have with them about your projects. So just so you know who's in the room today, it is the three of us and also the coach, Reverend Valerie Ross, who you've already spoken with. Also Kevin, who's not on this, Kevin Ritter, who works with our non-S4 program team, but who's giving us an assist today because we are lacking one of the main core members of our S4 team who is starting next week, who will help bring us all together. But so thank you also, Kevin, for helping
Hi,
us.
everyone. Nice to meet you.
So this is the members of the S4 team on the call today. And just so you know, in addition to seeing who is in the chats, this is everyone that's part of the virtual cohort. So you can see there's a range of where folks are coming from, but there's also some clusters that you might want to speak with or get involved with. I tried to bunch them here in a way that might make sense. And like I said, and like you saw in the agenda, we'll be hearing more about everyone's individual projects and why they were interested in being a part of this program in just a little while. So with that, I'll hand it off to Donna. Thanks everyone again for being here. We're really excited that you're a part of this program.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to finally be with you after thinking and planning for our time together. I'm going to use these slides loosely, and you can refer to them as, think of them as bullet points, what we're going to go through. Our purpose with you today is to get you to what French theologian Paul Ricoeur calls a second naivete. That's a return to excitement. A return to newness, a return to freshness about your building. And you'll notice that I've already put in a paradox, seeing your building as an asset as well as a problem. It's both. It is both. It's never just a wonderful thing, or it's never just a terrible thing. We're going to shake you up and dust you off and challenge your pessimism about your building, if you have some. And maybe you already come and are unlike most people who aren't pessimistic about their buildings. Maybe you love it. But here comes a quick Bible study before we go to the second slide. It comes from Lamentations, chapter 3, verse 25. And it says, God is good to those who wait. And what I love about scripture is it allows me to quarrel with it gently. I do believe God is good to those who wait. And I also believe God is good to those who don't wait. You've heard the phrase kicking the can down the road. Many church meetings, synagogue meetings, joint staff meetings, and business meetings in verbose examination of the can. What follows is a long discussion about calendarizing the next meeting. The meeting might be bridge repair or finding money or whatever it is. But later is often the conclusion of most minutes of most meetings. Indecision, you all know, is a form of decision. It takes its toll. The charges add up. Indecision is costly. The bridge collapses while we're figuring out how to repair it. In this seminar, in this work together, we want to get you to a plan. It might be a big plan, it might be a little plan, but it's going to break into the ordinary processes of kicking cans around and try to help you do something that you will enjoy and that you'll feel good about regarding your building. When it comes to living well and doing the work of God, the sacred work, the holy work, there can be holy patience, for sure. All your people won't be with you all the time. A lot of things take a lot of time, especially when it comes to real estate. But there's also a holy impatience. And when I talk about shaking up and dusting you off, that's what I want you to get to, a holy and capacitated impatience. Probably some of you know the joke about the man who said he would stop drinking in 2051 when all the vodka ran out. I hope you hear the metaphor of impatience. It would be great to fix your building in 2051 when you absolutely had to, or when there was no more congregation whatsoever, or whatever your situation is. It would also be great to get going now. And so my prayer for our time together is that God will bless us with wise patience and wise impatience. Next slide, please, Kate. We're going to talk about buildings. And buildings are, as we all know, not just buildings. They're emotional repositories. Somebody got buried there. Somebody got married there. We call it hatching, matching, and dispatching in the Christian frame. These are places where God becomes real to us in a hymn, a tear, a word, a song. They're also very important, and I say this as a bit of an activist. These buildings are the places, church basements are often the places where small d democracy develops. And if you wanted to get to the root cause of why a lot of people quarrel with a lot of other people a lot these days, you could look no further than our not having laboratory spaces. So when we talk about saving these buildings, we're not just talking about buildings. We're talking about the places where God becomes real. And in this training, we're going to stick with this notion that the buildings are a problem and a possibility. So you're going to be going back and forth between spiritual carrots and spiritual sticks. You're going to find out what the real obstacles are to doing the good work you want to do. And you're going to find out some real help too. It's a false binary between spiritual and material. I can say a gazillion things about that, but every time we get into this work and find ourselves saying, well, we can't do that for these spiritual reasons, or we can't do that for these physical reasons, we're going to try to excite you with an image of body and soul, earth and heaven, that will be fun and long looking. Next, please. We aren't broke. Mark Elston makes a great, great argument about the actual resources that congregations really have. And I highly recommend you read it, but the sum of it is a lot of us are hiding how much money we have from each other in real estate, in endowments, in investments, in money we could be making off the building. I want you to just say the words, we aren't broke, and then list at a certain point what you really do have. Next, please. There are a ton of tools that will allow you to measure your assets. And I give this one example because I happen to like it. And it's just a good tool of probably 25 that we can get you to. Next slide is another great tool. I'm going to pause here and ask Gianfranco to say hello and also give us a good look at this tool, a way to measure the goodness we're already doing.
Thank you, Donna, and good afternoon, everybody. It's exciting to be here and to start this journey together. We will spend a lot of time tomorrow talking about money, but just to inform you about this tool that our organization, Partners for Sacred Places, has created a few years ago, we are able to evaluate the economic impact of a congregation in a neighborhood or in a town. And we did this in collaboration with the University of Pennsylvania, the School of Social Work, rather than the School of Religion. That's an interesting thing. So analyzing up to 55 factors of the life of your congregation, of the things that you do, we can attach an economic impact on your activities. And this is not monopoly money. This is not fake money. It's the real money. For instance, the congregation that Donna was the pastor in the past, Judson Memorial in New York City, they did it. And I believe their number was about $9 million a year of economic impact in the community. This is really, really important. And among the friends in Chicago, they are on this webinar, in this training, you might recall a few years ago, there was a discussion with the city of Chicago about a water tax. And we were able to stop their water tax. And actually, I spoke to the city council about using this economic halo effect. So we analyze up to 55 factors from, the social impact, for instance, with the food pantries that you have, your real estate impact, tourism, Sometimes you have historic buildings and people comes and get married to your church. And so family come from other parts of the country. And so they spend time at hotels and restaurants and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit complex, but it's a very important tool. And I'll be happy to explain more privately or on another section if you're interested about this, about this. So the economic hill effect. Thank you, Donna. Back to you.
Good. And next slide, please. This book is something that I wrote out of the Judson experience of basically, I call it hyper use of sacred space. We use the closets, we use the hallways. We rented out a lot of space, and we gave away a lot of space to harm reduction, soup kitchens, shelters, immigrant rights, and more. And we're using the last three plus this slide to tell you there's a lot of resources out there that can give you a summary. And the only reason I put this one in here is, of course, to promote the book, which I like to do. And also to say that the main reason we were able to do the hyper use of sacred space at Judson was that they had removed their pews to make room for small and large gatherings. And that physical removal of furniture, which was all it was kind of commonsensical way to use a huge meeting space for multiple activities, was also a theological move. It said, we're trying to open the space and almost empty it for God's next and new revelation as to what we are supposed to be doing with our real estate. So these are all tools, and there are a gazillion more, and we'll keep talking about them and sharing them with you, because one or two of them is going to be just right for your setting. Next slide, please. And we really are talking about something that's going to take a while. If we get to the end of this training with you having a good next step, a good plan for your sacred site, that's our goal. And I don't think all of us will necessarily make it, but I think most of us will. And I want you to think about it in a very native sense, that there's a deeper stewardship of planting a tree or making a plan. It's about the future, and it's about a long-term future, and about people whom you may never see get to enjoy what you do. But as we know, that 7-generation thinking is terribly important. And by the way, somebody did it for us. And now it's time for us to do it for somebody else. Next slide, please. And what we do will last. Physical things, bricks, last for mortals. I could say a million things about that. But if you stick in the world of indecision, there will be very little legacy and therefore very little impact. Next slide, please. All right, on to you, Gianfranco.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you so much for your introduction. It's always a pleasure for me to listen to you when you say things. In terms, I love the connection between theology, obviously, and real estate, so to speak, right? The building. Mm-hmm. And first of all, I am sorry that we are not in person, yeah. And I want to extend the thanks to Kate and of course Kevin. They've been working so hard to make sure that this training gets put together. As you can imagine, there is a lots of preparation behind the scene, and so the kudos certainly goes to Kate, and they have the tough job to corral both Don and myself, which is not an easy thing, right? So and she does that very well and with lots of grace and sense of humor. So thank you, Kate, and of course Kevin for the help that you do with our training and other things. So let's go back to the building. This whole concept of the building. What I hope for you, and I want to echo Donna's final words here of an introduction, is really that you take something with you. Look, I'm going to be very blunt and very honest. Any training is very helpful if you make it helpful, And any training can be total waste of your time if you don't do anything about it. So I hope you choose the first option, which is to do something about it. And we will give you some actual tools here. This is not just conversation. It's not just empty words, things you already know, that kind of thing. So we will try to give you some actual advice. But the day after the end of the training, it's up to you, make it happen. And even if you take, I don't know how you feel about this, Donna, what about what I'm going to say, but if you only take 50% of the advice we're going to give you, you are in a good place. You are in a very, very good place, right? So you need to commit, not just to be here for 2 days and listen to me and Donna, of course, and Kate, but really be committed to do some of this work that will follow afterwards. We always will be with you. We'll walk with you. At the end of the training, you have a coach, Reverend Valerie, but also you have still Kate, Donna, and myself that we are ready, and willing to advise and suggest you along the way of this very important journey. Because your building, like you said in the slide, is not an albatross around your neck. When Kate read my introduction, the thing was left out is that I am a preservationist. And I don't know if you know what it is, but preservationists are those people that try to preserve buildings. So Partners for Sacred Places, some of you might know us, some might not, is the largest organization in America that works with sacred places. We've been founded in 1989, so we have now over 34 years of experience, work with thousands and thousands of sacred places across the country. We have worked in every single state, so we have a huge experience. And in my job as executive vice president, I oversee all the work that we do. And I have seen and visited thousands of sacred buildings, sacred places, from churches to synagogue to mosque to temples, because we are a secular organization, so we are not a religious organization. And that is a little bit different. So our approach is a little bit different. We don't discuss the theology, we don't discuss the beauty of the gospel and the depth of the Old Testament. We don't discuss any of that. But we're trying to say, look, here there are ways for you to become a stronger congregation, because we know, thanks to the study I mentioned before, another study from the past, that you are an anchor to your community. Your congregation is an anchor into your community. If you disappear, if you go away, who's going to do food pantry, homeless shelters, counseling, arts, theater, schools, all the stuff that you do every day, and nobody ever says thank you to you for doing that. So let me take this opportunity to say thank you for doing all the work that you do. The world wouldn't be the same. Your community wouldn't be the same. So you help to make the world a better place. And that's why your building is important, because your building is the anchor of all this, is the place where you can do all these things. We are in a very interesting time in history. By school and by studies, I'm an historian, so I always keep a very close eye to history. And obviously, and I'm not referring to this darn pandemic, right? That's not what I'm talking about, although the pandemic is making things a little bit more complicated. But I'm talking about, we are in a time of transition in how people relate themselves to religion in general. And there are lots of studies that, inform about this. And of course, all of you more or less are very well informed, even more than I am. But the things that I know, that lots of buildings are going to be left empty because people feel that they are alone. They feel that they have an albatross around their neck, this big building, like the one I have on my back. By the way, you're going to win an award, a prize if you can tell me by the end of tomorrow which building is behind me. But these buildings, right? What are we going to do with those buildings? They're expensive. They, there is deferred maintenance. You have to keep up with these old buildings, and congregations are shrinking. They're getting smaller. Across the board in Chicago, we have lots of 5 or 6 friends from Chicago, congregation from Chicago. Just the other day is coming out that the Archdiocese of Chicago is closing about 123 parishes by July. So they are combined there. So what's going to happen with those buildings? What's happening with this community? And so across the board, in any faith tradition, in any denomination, we have this issue of transition. Yet there is a great opportunity. Where there is a challenge, there is an opportunity, right? So what is the silver lining? We can't use our building in a smarter and better way. It's really, really important. The other things that we're going to talk about during this training is the second bullet, so to speak. Now, everybody loves John Lennon. I think we all agree that John Lennon is probably one of the greatest musicians, you know, of our time, of the history of modern music, at least. In fact, I read, you know, the famous song, Imagine, is probably the most beautiful song ever composed. I don't know if it's true, but, you know, so John Lennon said, all you need is love. Well, he was wrong because, yeah, you need love, but also a check. And so congregations oftentimes are terrified or embarrassed, or, you know, they have a problem to talk about money. We need to talk about money. We need to break that barrier, because only if we talk about money, then we can really address some of those issues. We live in the world. Churches, congregations do live within the world. You don't live in heaven yet. You are not there yet. And maybe even heaven, there will be some sort of, you know, money. I don't know. I'm looking at Donna and other pastors here. But here on earth, we need to deal with that. So it's important that we talk about. We will give you actual coaching about how really raise money. Now, I am not a fundraiser, so I don't want you to misunderstand. I am not. I am a preservationist and I'm an historian. I help to raise money to fix buildings, but it's part of what we do. And when I hear that I have helped to raise over $80 million to do that, it's scary. And it's a drop in the ocean. I mean, this ocean is much bigger, but it's something. So as many congregations that have worked with me over these many, many years in my career, have been able to raise all this money, I promise you that if you do something like the thing that we're going to suggest you, you might be in a better place. Because you will learn 2 important things. Your building is an asset and is not an albatross around your neck. And the second thing you learn, that money is important, no matter what you think. So I give it back to, I don't know if it's Donna or Kate, but one of my dear colleagues and friends.
I think it's time for you all to say something. So
yes, exactly. So I hope that introduction was helpful in terms of framing. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Oh, thanks. Was helpful in terms of framing the training that you'll be getting, not just today, but overall. So now, like Donna said, we're eager to hear from all of you and have your cohort hear a little bit about all of you and where you're coming from. So I'm hoping now, this is a list of every congregation that's a part of this cohort. I'm hoping that one representative from each congregation can spend about 5 minutes. You can definitely get an assist from somebody else if needed, or if after the first person speaks, you want to throw in a little extra, that's totally fine too. But hoping that you can provide some insight as to why your congregation joins this program. If you have a project in mind that you'd like to engage in, who's on your project team, and anything else that we should know about you or your context. So I think it'd be helpful if we just go in this order so we don't forget anyone. So does Central Presbyterian Austin want to go first? And just whoever wants to speak for the team, go unmute yourselves and go ahead.
I'll go. I'm Catherine Barlow Williams. I'm the senior pastor of Central Presbyterian Church. And thank you for all the work you've done getting this all pulled together. We are looking at redeveloping our education side of the building, as well as trying to start a music and arts commission. And what the redevelopment would look like, we're not quite sure yet. We're very committed to mission. And as most of you probably, well, if you don't live in Austin, you may have heard of it. We have a really significant issue with people without homes. And we would like to, for whatever our redevelopment is, to do something of service for the community and to help those who are experiencing food scarcity and lack of housing.
That sounds great. Does anyone else from this congregation want to add anything, or? All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's really great to have you with us. Does someone from Genesis Presbyterian want to go ahead?
Hello, my name is Mandy Ritchie, and I am the pastor of Genesis Presbyterian Church. Shout out to Catherine, who made us aware of this program, and I hurried up and applied. Genesis is a church on the east side of Austin, and my church is really tiny, I have like 15 members. And we share space on my campus with Clearview Sudbury School. And Greg is a teacher from that school. And we share space with New Covenant Fellowship of Austin. And Becca Longino is the pastor of that church. And so the three of us kind of do life together on our campus. And we realize that my congregation isn't getting any younger. And we have this wonderful campus that backs up to a park. And on the east side, it's historically Black and minority part of the city, and how can we serve them? Like Catherine, I've also been thinking about arts and music classes and what can we do for kids or adults or someone on the east side. But that's kind of who we are and how we're seeking to serve our community. We just haven't quite figured out how to do that yet, but we want to.
All right, First Austin.
Hey, I'm Griff, pastor of First Austin, and Catherine also made us aware of this project. She's part of my downtown clergy group and is one of my favorite people in the whole world.
It's a mutual admiration, yes.
But we're that classic church that built 50 years ago and built the perfect church that if 1950s ever comes around again, we are right in shape for that church with a lot of spaces that are too small. And the minute we got done building, that's when church attendance started declining. So we've done some creative things in our space. We have a black box theater. We just recently completed a whole row of artist spaces that we want to give to Black artists in Austin because there's huge race issues here in Austin. We do a lot of work with unhoused neighbors because that's right where we are. But we just have a lot of space that is wasted in the church, and we no longer have the tithe to continue to maintain this huge space. So we're starting a pretty big project about what would this look like for First Austin and the block and a half we have downtown to really redevelop that. I'm going to let Leslie, who's kind of chairing that project, share where we are in that.
So I am Leslie Moore, and I am chairing this committee that we're calling the Future Sustainability and Stewardship Group, and that is what we're looking at. We're spending way too much of our money keeping an old building alive, and in addition to it being an old building, it's kind of an old piece of art. It was designed by two architects who went to our church, who it has lots of things that are rare and expensive in it, and the way it was built that are finicky and require a lot of care. So we'd like to get into a space that's the correct size for us, that's we're able to modify more readily as we need to change in the missions that we're offering, and to just be able to spend our money on our missions rather than on keeping a giant building alive.
Kate, can I say something quickly?
Absolutely.
So, Leslie, you are part of Griff's congregation, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I love this. So can I ask if not only the pastor talk about the congregation, introduce the congregation, but if there is a member of the congregation, one of the lay leaders, beside the pastor, of course, to give us a glimpse about the congregation. I'll be very grateful, be very helpful. Thank you. Like Leslie did now. Thanks. Kate, back to you.
All right, that would be great. So St. Paul's moving out of Texas. So St. Paul's United
Texas.
Methodist.
Good morning, everyone. Carla here from St. Paul's United Methodist in Hartselle. I am a lay leader. I am also the worship chair. And before you said anything, Gianfranco, my pastor asked me to speak on behalf of the congregation. She's present, but she wanted to have another voice echo some of the concerns that we have here at St. Paul's. We are in the perfect location that nobody knows where we are. We are centrally located. We're near shopping centers, yet people can't find our church. We have a congregation of about 30 odd members, and we see regularly about, I would say 75%, anywhere from 20 to 28, almost 30 is like a magic number around Easter when everyone brings their families. The concerns we have is that part of our population is an aging population, meaning we have more people over 60 than we have under 40. And we'd like to learn a little bit about how we can re-envision the space that we have and get more people excited about worship. As you know, believe it or not, the nuns have taken over and they have more of a presence in our community than the Catholic Church. So we're looking to see how we can make worship more exciting and more relevant to the people such that they have a place to congregate.
Mhm.
That sounds really interesting.
Mhm.
Rendell Memorial from New York City.
Good morning. I am Flora Wilson Bridges, the pastor of the Rendell Memorial Presbyterian Church in Harlem. Thank you first for this wonderful presentation. I love when you are talking about sitting under trees, and that we will not get shade from, and others coming before us who did it for us. This is definitely the history of Rendell Church. Rendell was founded about 103 years ago from the first African American church, Presbyterian church in Harlem. And so we are a small, predominantly African American church in central Harlem. We have on roll 69 members. Of that, many are not aging, but already aged. And we are in an ideal location across the street from Harlem Hospital. Rendell Church, over more than a century, has done a great deal of ministry within Harlem and work that extends to other boroughs in New York City. Presently, for almost 6 years, we have been the location of a shelter for the homeless. Homelessness is at a crisis state in New York City, has been before the pandemic and has been exacerbated by the pandemic. We are, thank God, I believe, in some ways, a medium-sized building. I don't know what we would do if we had been an enormous, humongous building with all of the utility costs. But what we do need is a way to reconfigure the space that we have in a deteriorating building. By that, I mean roof issues, central things like electricity and plumbing, things that need to be updated and repaired after a century. we need to have a not just a space, but a dedicated space for the homeless shelter that is in full swing, so that we can surface more of the population of our sisters and brothers, our siblings who are homeless in the boroughs of New York City. So we are beginning to attract young adults. At the moment, we have one young PhD student and 4 seminarians who are coming to Rendell Church on a regular basis every Sunday virtually, because we're not open for worship. And we are attracting, but the majority of us are aged.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that really thorough summary. Fauntleroy, I'm not really sure I said that correctly. In
That's
Seattle.
correct.
Okay,
That's
good.
correct. Yeah, thank you. I'm Leah Atkinson-Belinsky. I'm the senior pastor of Fauntleroy Church in Seattle. We're a church that has been here since the first decade of the 20th century. And it's a active church. We have a YMCA that's been inside our building for over 100 years. And I think that that's maybe a place to start that just highlights our congregation is pretty open and prompted, I think, by that partnership to think about other partnerships that we might have and how we can think outside the box. So we're presently looking for another building partner for another wing of our church, and always thinking about who we can open our space to. We have some different projects that we're looking at, the possibility of maybe creating an apartment at some point inside of our church, talking about reaching out and maybe having a group called Operation Night Watch bring 10 unhoused men into the church each night to sleep here. And then we have also a big kind of land problem that we're dealing with right now is that we have a salmon bearing stream that runs underneath of our parking lot that someone decided in the 1950s it would be a good idea to, when they were moving our sanctuary up the hill, to fill it in with dirt and cover it with a parking lot with a giant culvert underneath. So we've been talking with the city for 5 years, and it's in poor condition. We're going to have to address it in some way. And it's prompted a lot of conversation, a lot of problems, and some that come with astronomical price tags attached to them. And presently where that conversation is that we're looking at the possibility of restoring our parking lot back to the way it was before we decided to pave paradise and put up a parking lot. So yeah, so that's where we are. That's a little bit. I'll turn it over to Diane, one of our church members, if she'd like to say anything more.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Sprague. I've been a member of Fauntleroy for about 4 years. I moved to Seattle from Connecticut for a grandkid. We have a immigration task force that we are core members of, my partner and I. And so it's our dream actually to use part of the church building to make an apartment. Right this minute, we're going to resettle an Afghan family probably this week. So we are in the throes of knowing or trying to know what we're doing, but to be able to have an apartment, a temporary space to place someone who's newly in the country or an asylum seeker, it would be so valuable to be able to work with them prior to putting them out into the world. We have a space in the church that has that's on the 4th floor, but because, like Leah says, it's on a hill, there is a outdoor door that goes directly out into the space. And it's an amazing space that like I said, it's a dream apartment. It's still in the dream stage. Thanks.
Beautiful dream.
Very important one. Very important.
It's so great to hear the different range of very specific projects and ideas that just halfway through this list that folks have. And, you know, it's clear that in engaging in this program that you all have really specific intentions for the next 2 years. All right, so the next person on this or congregation on this list is First Congregational in Corvallis.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Butler. I'm the senior minister of the Corvallis UCC Church, and I have a colleague and some members of the congregation here with me today. So I'll just open and then ask if they would like to add on. So I resonate with a comment made earlier in Austin that our church was built for a different time, like many of our buildings. And so we are imagining, reconfiguring and just reimagining the space, largely born out of the opportunities of pandemic, which sounds strange, but during pandemic, we sort of rode a wave of being able to innovate in order to continue to be relevant to our community. So we removed our pews, we renovated our sanctuary with some help from Donna. And we have also sort of redefined who we are in the community by way of a transitional housing project that takes place on our land over the last 3 years. So what I noticed during that time is that our external facing work, the work that we're doing in the community, is much more interesting and exciting to folks than the people who are coming to worship on Sunday mornings, who are largely over the age of 60 and probably predominantly even over the age of 70. So like many of you have already articulated, our congregation is dying in many ways, but something is ready to be reborn. And I think we're just here, not so much with a specific project, but noticing that we're growing on the margins and wanting to find that, that space that Donna talked about for God's next revelation for us. And I'd like to invite anyone else from my congregation to share.
Hi, Jen. It was good to see you. Reverend Jen Butler is officially on sabbatical. I would like to see myself when I talk. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
We have this large CE wing, just like Reverend Butler said. Our building was built in the early 60s, so we have a very large CE wing. I was happy to hear that there's another church here who has a dream of having an apartment in their building. That is something that I have been thinking about of doing with our large CE wing, which could be, you know, if we had all the money in the world, we could renovate it, we could reconfigure it, and there would be space for a few small studios that would be low rent. Because I believe that if God really exists, then she would smile upon churches who offer a roof over the heads of people, who offer low rent living spaces. And we are of course enjoying our brand new sanctuary without the pews. It will take the wrap up of the pandemic to see how that space will be used by the community when they feel safe again meeting in person. Thanks.
All right, is there anyone else from your congregation that wants to add anything else? All right, I think that's it. So we can move on to Colonial Church and Prairie Village.
I'll start. My name is Aaron Roberts. I'm the senior minister here, and our two lay people are both at their jobs right now, so they are not going to be able to take part in the training for the next couple days. But we are just starting a capital campaign and we're raising money to redo a lot of parts of the building. And so actually our participation in this hopefully will drive a lot of how the choices that we make with how next steps that we have with our building. And one of them, I'll tell you my big hope, and yesterday I was having a lot of fun talking about this. Prairie Village is a fairly affluent inner ring suburb of Kansas City. And one of the things that we're really hoping for is we look around and kind of see the need. And one of the things we've seen is mental health has been a huge issue with kids in the community. And so we're kind of talking, and there's really no place for kids to gather. There's outside of school, there's really nothing. And so we were really talking about kind of redoing our lower level into a community center that could be used open for exercise classes, for just homework, tutoring, whatever the community needs. And so we're one of the things that somebody who's going to be taking part in this whole conversation too, she would love to see it open as a meditation center down there as well. And so we're really looking at new uses for how our building can be a center for the broader community around here too. The mental health needs we've had. I don't think, I was actually thinking about this, I don't know that 3 weeks has gone by in the pandemic where I have not talked to somebody who is either contemplated or in the process of killing themselves. And so that is, I think people need a place and they need people. And so I think that there's something that we can do with that.
Wow.
Hi, my name is Michael, and I'm the associate pastor here at Colonial UCC, and I just don't have much to add to what Aaron said, but I will say that I'm brand new here. I've only been here for a month, and so I'm coming in with fresh eyes, and I just, that's so important, I think, in all of these conversations that we're having, to view our buildings with fresh eyes. I was having a conversation with someone. We have a market area across the street and a Starbucks, and somebody said, the youth aren't really welcome at the Starbucks because they're so noisy, and it's just not a place where the employees want them to be, and I want them to be here. I want them to be invited here, and so thinking and imagining ways that this space can be an open and welcoming place. And as part of that capital campaign, we're thinking about ways to shuffle around our rooms, so make them multi-purpose, make them places where we can do all sorts of fun and interesting things. So it's just a really exciting time for us here at the congregation, and I'm happy to be a part of this cohort as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That's so important. Okay, now we're going to pivot to the Chicagoland group within the virtual cohort. Wicker Park Lutheran Church. Do you want to give an introduction?
Hi, yes, my name is Nora Millets. I'm a member of the Congregation Council here at Wicker Park Lutheran Church. So our background, we're about 275 members or so. We are in a beautiful space in the Wicker Park area of Chicago, but it is a building that is over 140 years old. So definitely aging, as they say. And, we've embarked on a comprehensive building plan that will probably take us the next decade to decade plus to kind of evolve into where we want to go. It actually started a few years prior to that. We had a parsonage that we had converted. It was originally a parsonage that we had converted into apartments, and we're actually getting income for sustainability of the congregation through that rental income. We made a decision a few years back to say that we no longer wanted to be dependent on that, and that it wasn't a space that we were going to be utilizing for really truly mission and vision moving forward. So we did kind of everything started with the decision to move away from that. And we now have great neighbors that we just hang out with. But within our comprehensive plan that we hope to kind of, that's going to happen in the next decade or so, we want to become fully ADA accessible. We do have a great deal of community involvement from everything from, AA being in our building almost every night, to educational opportunities for schools, to, karate class, right? Kind of all over the board. But right now our building is not super conducive to having multiple things going on at one time. There's really just one big basement area and one big area upstairs that we work with. So we are going to kind of evolve into more compartmentalizing of those spaces, so that we can, we can have a group of 50 and we can have a group of 10 and be able to utilize that building quite a bit more. We also have makeshift gender neutral bathrooms right now that we want to actually fully live into, to ensure that we are making our space open and welcoming to anyone and everyone. We have, I guess the other things that we have are kind of already done, and whether or not they were intentionally within the comprehensive plan or not, but at the time that we did them, but we do have solar panels now, and most of our expenses are offset through that energy. And we also just completed what we call our gathering garden. So there's a small space within the front of the church that wasn't really being utilized for much other than catching weeds. We've converted that kind of into a seating space, so that both, to allow people within our congregation as well as just the community to be able to utilize that space kind of as a place just to hang out. And let me try to think if there was anything additional here that I wanted to add. And also hybrid, right? So we are a fully hybrid church now, operating both in the pews as well as fully online, and we want to live into that and ensure that we provide a means of building that hybrid church experience. So with that, I think a couple of other folks from my congregation are on, if anyone wants to add anything else. Otherwise, I think that's us.
Does anybody else want to add anything from Wicker Park? It sounds like you have a lot going on. So one of the reasons it's great to have so many people in these cohorts is that we can all learn from each other. And that's why we wanted the cohort experience for this program. New Community Church.
Yes, good morning. My name is Carla Griffin, and I am the Director of Finance here at New Community Church. We are actually located in Dalton, Illinois, which is a suburb right outside of Chicago. And our church is currently 134 years old. We are currently going through transitioning, meaning that we were once a upper middle class, majority Caucasian community, and now it is predominantly African-American with a low to moderate income community. So we are or have been developing partnerships with various organizations in the community, because we are working to collaborate with Dalton. Our vision statement is to have a passionate connection with God, one another, and our community. So with that, we have partnered with ACE, which is an after-school program, so strongly needed for the children in the community. Meals on Wheels for our seniors, trying to work more. We do have an aging population as well, but we're trying to also bring in new people because a lot of the older people are dying out. We work with Easter Seals as well. We too are looking to embark on doing a capital campaign, because there are just some things within the building that we do need to kind of either update or need fixing. But yeah, that's pretty much the extent of it, and just so happy to be a part. My pastor asked me to get on the call, and so yeah, so I'm really excited. This is really great.
Say your mission statement again, please.
Yes, ma'am. Our mission statement is to have a passionate connection with God, with one another, and our community.
Beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
Covenant United Christ Church of Christ.
Hello, everyone. I'm Reverend Troy Underwood. I'm Associate Pastor at Covenant United Church of Christ. I'm also the Executive Director of our affiliate, the Barbara Westbrook Smith Family Life Center. Covenant is a 26-year-old African-American congregation in South Holland, Illinois. It is probably one of the largest, fastest growing congregations in the United Church of Christ, which is predominantly white. We have a membership of about 3,500 members. Since the pandemic, we have been closed. I've been doing service digitally and opening our doors in limited use for worship service come this April, first Sunday in April. We have, since the acquisition, well, since the start of Covenant in 1996, it started in a church that closed its doors. That was a Thornton Reformed Church, which was also UCC the year before on Easter Sunday, and we had our first service on Easter Sunday the next year. We now have 3 buildings. In 2008, we purchased another church, which is across our parking lot, that has become our youth church. 2011, we started construction on our Family Life Center, tearing down actually the original church we started in after building a sanctuary just across from it. And then in 2018, December 2018, we purchased the building west to us, which was Valley Kingdom Ministries. Prior to that, it was the Waterman School. And so that church, that building, Covenant West, is 50,000 square feet of space. The only thing that's being housed in there right now is our food pantry, which I'm also the site administrator for. And so we're just utilizing just a small footprint in that building. That particular building needs lots of work. And so the goal initially, after we purchased it, was to build a hydroponic indoor farm. And that relationship somewhat soured. And we've had transition in leadership during the last 3.5 years. And so the focus is to build science, technology, engineering, arts, and math labs in that building, as well as house now some of our ministries as programs in that space. And so that would be our mentoring programs, that would be our advocacy and programs, as well as our direct service programs, sustainability, and career and business development. So we have one of the challenges, I think, of having 3 buildings on our campus is that they're not all connected. There's some disconnect, particularly between our main building south with our north building, which is the youth church, and having to, once we're back in as before pre-pandemic, how to get really safely across from one space to the other. But even now, the greater challenge is finding funding to remodel the space that we're in for our food pantry and the other programs. We actually are going to be starting some work with our food pantry, worked on a grant to help remodel that, because we are open every Saturday serving 6 zip codes in our area for the most part that surround us. The interesting notion of South Holland in terms of its poverty and economic rates, it's low, has the lowest rates among the other southern suburbs that we surround and serve. So trying to find sometimes some funding to do the things we want to do becomes a bit of a challenge, even though we're serving communities that have more challenges than South Holland itself. So I'm glad to be on this call to reimagine what this possibility could be. But it is a task and patience. Reverend Carmen Frederick Douglass is also on this call. She serves in a dual role. She is our online engagement person, particularly when we began having to have services digitally. She is responsible for all of the online engagement, and she also serves for our affiliate community outreach. So we're working closely with the school districts in our area to begin to build a bridge so that we can provide these STEM learning innovative labs, which is part of our targeted goal for the children in the communities. And I think that's about it. Reverend Carmen, if there's something you want to add.
No, just wanted to say hello, and I appreciate the, my last name is Frederick James and not Frederick Douglass, although I appreciate the acknowledgement of.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
So, no, I know. But no, thank you. Nothing else to add. Right?
And we have one other team member, Kathy Evans Williams, who's the church business manager and legal counsel. So I think she's doing legal things today, so she's not on this call, I don't think.
All right, great. That sounded fantastic. Thank you for that rundown of everything you guys have been working on. All right, we have two more. The next is Brook Road United Methodist Church.
Good morning. My name is Violet Joniker. I serve as the pastor here at Brook Road United Methodist Church, and I am joined today by Lori Vowles, our office administrator, and by Denny O'Hara, our trustee here. We're trying to all get in the camera here, but we're so glad to be with you all. So we are in Rockford, Illinois, which is about 90 miles west of Chicago. And our building that we worship in now is about 60 years old. And it's actually the only mainline Protestant church in the neighborhood. We're in Southeast Rockford. And so there's a couple other smaller churches, but we're really the big building in the area. So we try to serve as a community resource center as much as we can. And we're excited to try to do that more. Within the last 2 years, we have started sharing space with another Methodist congregation that worships in Spanish, and an additional Methodist congregation that worships in Swahili. So what we're excited about right now is the possibility for these three congregations to share space, to find ways to do programming that meets the needs of a really diverse neighborhood, and to better use our building. It's fortuitous that you're giving us some encouragement today too, because we're having problems with our boiler. Part of it's down and our sanctuary is cold. We had to have worship somewhere different yesterday. So we're optimistic about that, getting that fixed this week. But it was a good reminder to hear that a building can be both a problem and a blessing. So we're excited about possibilities to partner with the community. Right now, we work with our public library. We're a stop for a mobile bookmobile, and they're talking about doing some additional programming inside. We've had a Zumba class meeting here in our basement for a while, and we have a Spanish language AA group that meets here. So we're getting better at space sharing, but we want to make sure that we can have the resources to stay open so that we can be a resource to the community, especially for some of these new ministries that can't necessarily pay rent. So if you folks have anything you want to add. All right, well, thanks for having us here today.
Well, hi, I'm Pastor Lisa from St. Matthew Lutheran Church in Itasca, Illinois. I came in October of 2020, and the discovery was that this congregation that had one image of themselves was actually a very different thing in reality. They have some amazing strengths. The strength that they have is they have a paid for building. They have an endowment that will let it run until the next millennium. They have the ability to pivot and incorporate new ideas. They have become a reconciling in Christ congregation. They have opened various parts of the sanctuary so that we can accommodate wheelchairs. We have tried very hard to kind of position ourselves online. We have a YouTube channel now, which everybody gets to puff out their chest because that was a journey. And we also have a presence on Facebook. So there's some many great gifts that we have. The struggle, as I said, in their image of themselves, is that they were built they became a congregation in 1958. The building was built in 1962 by an absolutely wonderful benefactor who probably would have stayed a wonderful benefactor, but they had a family of 8 children, and the youngest daughter was killed in 1962 at the age of 4. And what wound up happening, as I'm understanding it, is that the church became a memorial church to her. And so you couldn't really go against him, because to go against him was to go against a dead 4-year-old. And that's kind of really hard to do. And so the struggle has been for the congregation. The last remaining member of that family left or passed from the church in June of 2020. So about 3 months or 4 months before I came. And then there are still daughters who are on the financial board, but very, very, very tangentially involved, not involved in the life of the congregation. The other kids have all moved away to different places. They're not involved in the congregation. So I have the challenge of being the first pastor to come in who's not having to accommodate that worldview. And by all accounts, part of the struggle for the church has been that it was his church. And so the difficulty has been that if you got on with him, that was great. If you didn't, you left. And we are down to now about 25 members. A call I had actually at the beginning of this presentation was to say we're going to be down to 24. So it is a continual ongoing thing to discover what we are to do. We are a much older congregation. There are no youth present at this time. There are occasional grandkids that drop by, but it's very, very hit or miss. And so all of my training and all of my background has been to shepherd churches. This is a redevelopment of a church. And so part of what I'm on this call for is what Pastor Donna had talked about at the beginning, which was that second naivete, that return to excitement, newness, and freshness. Because with COVID complications and the complications of the history of this church, I'll tell you, it's very difficult for me to look at it with a sense of excitement. There are days, weeks that I feel, well, maybe I will be their last pastor. And I don't want to be. I don't want to be. So I'm on the call to find that excitement to plant that tree. Thank you.
Thank you. Well put. I think we all know that place.
Yeah. So I want also to give Reverend Valerie Ross a few minutes to introduce herself on this call. I know most, if not all of you, have touched base with her, but I just want to give her a moment while we're all together to reintroduce herself and offer a few thoughts that you might have during this forum. So I'll hand it over to you for as long as you'd like to take, for as long or as short. Valerie, if you want to unmute.
Thank you. That's so helpful. I think that's the word of 2021 and 2022. Please unmute. Anyway, good morning, everyone. It's so good to be here. I am just so excited about all the things that you all have shared, that your congregations are doing for the community that you serve. And I'm just really excited to be working with this cohort. Just amazing, the things that you are accomplishing already. And so working along with you to, my internet connection is a little unstable, so if it wavers, I apologize. Having the opportunity to work along with you all to further what you're doing now and to help you do the things that you feel you're called to do is just a wonderful opportunity for me. I've been involved with this work since its beginning. I was once a community minister at Judson Memorial Church in New York while Dr. Scopper was the pastor. And I remember when this whole brainchild was unfolding, myself and another young minister there by the name of Miles Goff began working through this and contacting pastors and rabbis and imams for the very first meeting of Bricks and Mortals when this whole thing was born. And so I'm just grateful to still be in the process and really overjoyed for the opportunity to work with you all. Some of you I have spoken with, some I've just communicated with via email, but following this training today and tomorrow, we will be in much closer contact. What I want to be able to do is set up a monthly meeting with each of the groups here in this cohort, and maybe down the road, even set up a time when all of us can come back together again as a total group to share what's going on. But I will be staying in contact with you and wanting to know how your projects are unfolding, and I'm here to help and assist in any way. And if I don't have the answer for you, I promise you that I will not pretend I have the answer for you. What I'll probably do is call Reverend Donna and get the answer for you. But that's just the way that I work. I believe in being open and honest and above board. And we're working together. And this is going to be a wonderful project. I can just feel it. That's all that I have for this morning. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And we're so excited to have you as part of this. Reverend Valerie was the first coach that we signed on. She was the first person that we had in mind for this. So you, and like, as she said, we've known her for many years. So you guys are really lucky to have her go through this process with you. Yeah, so we can talk more about some of the process as we move forward, but I also just wanted to pass to John Franco for any thoughts that he might have at the moment.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was saying, I go to what Valerie said about the unmute thing. So I was saying, first of all, thank you everybody for sharing who you are and where you want to go in the future and the challenges that you have. And my heart goes to Pastor Lisa Watson Hill that shared the story of her church. You will learn tomorrow, Pastor, that I always say, never be hostage of a donor. It doesn't matter how good they are, it never works out. But please, our organization, Partner for Sacred Places, has lots of resources. And I already listening to you. I don't know if you're familiar, but we have also the largest grant program in the country for historic house of worship. And for us, historic means at least 40 years and older. So you don't have to be a landmark. You don't have to be on the National Register. You don't have to be a designated landmark. I invite you to talk to, shoot me an email. And maybe, there are so many services we can already offer to help you. But this grant program, there are at least a couple of churches. I'm thinking Fond du Roi in Seattle, that's very interesting. As well, of course, Wickery Park in Lutheran in Chicago. So, and many others might be as well. But my attention has been piqued. We have the largest grant program in America for historic house of worship. It's an opportunity. It's a very tough one. Donna went through it. It's very competitive. It's up to $250,000. So it's real money. do email me if you have questions, but not just for the grant. Remember, go on our website. There are lots of services and opportunities. Pastor offer grants, Pastor leads and offer you for the grant program, but there are another service we could do for you. So already a help out there, for you to use. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, absolutely. Donna, we're about to wrap up this section. Did you have any closing thoughts before we head to a quick break?
I just love this cohort. It's really exciting. I mean, y'all look really good on paper, but you sound even better on Zoom. Can I imagine what you would be like in person?
Okay, great. So we have 5 minutes here, but since we're running a little early, I'll say a 10-minute break. So we'll be back at it's 1:40 here, but convert that for your time zone. So 10 minutes from now at whatever hour 40 you are, and we'll see you in 10 minutes.
Thank you, Kate.
All right, good.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming back. We'll just wait until our trainers are in front of their Zoom cameras and, and we'll get started.
Okay. Oops, I lost my glasses here.
All right, Donna, are you ready to
I am.
get started on the contextualization for this exercise?
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. again, what a thrilling cohort this is. So many different kinds of possibilities. Makes me very glad. It's an honor to be with you. So I want to start with a kind of, what's the right word? A coaching. And I think of me as a coach throughout this process. And what the coach does is to try to build up people's confidence that they can do things that they may not think they can. And often in the coaching process, there's a loss of self-confidence, often for clergy and lay leaders. There's a loss of self-confidence when the pews aren't full, the coffers aren't full, newcomers aren't coming, or the congregation is aging, or whatever. And I want to tell a story that will help, I hope, turn this into a judgment-free zone for our time together. And by judgment-free zone, I mean a place where you may have failures, but that doesn't mean you're a failure. Things may not be going well, not everything you try will work, but as long as you keep trying, something will work, including the possibility of closing your site or giving it to somebody else, giving it to a new immigrant congregation, or sharing the space with a congregation that is not able to build its own building. So I want to expand your notion of what sacred sites are supposed to do and tell you a story from the Massachusetts Conference of the United Church of Christ in 1987. Yes, next year I will have been in this business for 50 years. And so some of us can go all the way back to the last century or further. It's not a crime, it's actually a privilege to age and to learn as you go. In the 80s, in the Massachusetts Conference, the United Church of Christ had 375 churches and a staff that we were in 5 districts. I was the Western area minister, and there was one for Boston, Central, South, and North. And we noticed that we were losing churches kind of rapidly. And by the way, the Massachusetts Conference today has about 110 churches. So in fact, that loss of congregations to either selling or just abandoning, in some cases, buildings is a development that has only accelerated in these last years. But as we began to see the loss of buildings and congregations, we said, oh my God, what is going on here? And so we did this, we got a Lilly Endowment grant. Yes, thank you, Eli Lilly, for supporting us even today. And the Lilly grant showed the conference some very interesting things. We made a list of where we thought, we 5 area ministers, where we thought the most talented clergy were. And we put them over a map of the congregations that were still in business and the ones that had gone out of business and the ones that looked like they were about to go out of business. And there was absolutely no correlation between leadership talent and the decline of the congregations, like 0. So we have these phenomenally great pastors by our very subjective judgment. And they would be in a community where the congregation was just in a lot of trouble demographically, age-wise, etc. And then the trainer that we had at that time said, why don't you now graph where the congregations are growing? And we're going to put where the Walmarts are going in. Because Walmart's was not always with us. It's a relatively new development. And when we put the Walmarts on top of the map of Massachusetts, guess what? The growing congregations, whether they had good leadership or did not have good leadership, were very close to a Walmart's. And there was a correlation that was simply astounding. And what we learned from that exercise was that the context whether population or demographic fertility is increasing in your area is the key component to whether your congregation is increasing. And I, being an area minister at that time, was constantly talking to pastors and lay leaders. And there was one circular conversation that was going on. And the circular conversation was, boy, if we just had a good leader, everything would be fine here. And from the pastors, the conversation was, if these people weren't so dysfunctional, we'd really be having a great time here. In fact, those things do matter. Leadership matters, openness matters, maturity matters in leadership. But what also matters is location and context. There are some contexts in which you could put Mahatma Gandhi, Dolly Parton, and Martin Luther King, and you would not be able to grow a congregation, because the population was changing from the culture that the congregation represented. That is a matter of urban flight, and it's a matter of multiple things that happen. And some of you have already described it as you described your context. What we want to do here is to provide leadership to the context in which our congregation is located. And of course, we want those congregations to be as diverse as possible, but fundamentally, they're going to have to reflect their cultural context, their neighborhoods, their demographic fertility, and their Walmarts. So that's what I want to say about context, and I love it when people quarrel with me. So we're going to go into our groups now and ask more questions about context. Each one of these questions in the chat on the screen right now will tell you what you do and maybe don't know about your context. But I wanted to use the Walmart story as a starter, because you're going to have to know what's going on in your context. And by the way, context is not just neighborhood, it can also be denomination, but it is surely about trends. What kind of business are moving in? You know your neighborhood is gentrifying if there's a Starbucks in it, right? Well, Walmart is that kind of indicator. So as we go into the groups, I think about the Walmart question as a metaphorical question. You know, what is happening to population shifts? You want to be with the way the population and wind is blowing, not against it. And you also want to know things about your place. And some of those questions are statistical, and we are going to definitely work with you contextually on statistics and trends. But some of them are cultural, and in this slide, I put the more cultural questions. Now, one more thing. I think I got a couple more minutes. Do I? Yes. I want you to go to number 11, the spaghetti test. And I'm going to tell one story there that is also, I think, of import to all of you. The spaghetti test goes like this. If you ask just about any congregation today, they will say the most stressed out people in our situation are parents who have children, who endured the horrors of COVID, who have 2.5 jobs plus a side gig, who won't let you come to their house because they'll say my house is a mess, because of course we don't clean the house, because how could we clean the house with kids and school and all those jobs? They will, they'll really think that they should be doing more for their personal wellness and their work-life balance, because that's what younger people are really interested in. Unlike those of us who just always work all the time. And I like to make sure I say to other women clergy, one of the most terrible things we have done to younger women clergy as older women clergy is to overfunction for so long to prove our pioneer status. And then what happens is that younger person comes in and says, I have 2 kids, I'm not going to work every night of the week. And the congregation thinks, oh, well, the last one did. What's wrong with you? So overfunctioning can be a real problem. Back to the parents. The parents need a night out. You probably have an empty kitchen, tablecloths you haven't used for a while. And if you wanted to, you could say to the remnant congregation, and I also, by the way, I see you're not all remnants by any stretch of the imagination, but many of you are. The remnant congregation could serve a free spaghetti supper to the parents and their children in that unused youth space. Put a tablecloth on the table, a candle on the table, give a free meal. You could even put a bottle of wine on the table if you were that kind of congregation. And you give it to them for free. They come, they receive a gift. They are not proselytized because that takes away the economy of the gift you're doing. And when they start to meet each other and have their children play with each other, it becomes a mini community. We did this at Judson. It grew our Sunday school back to 60 kids, starting with 0. The parents became the backbone of the church. It wasn't done for that reason. It was done to give a gift to the community, to our context as we saw it. So if the members of the remnant congregation say to you something like, what? They should be cooking for us after all we've done for this community. That means you probably don't have enough left to turn the congregation around, and it's time to think about closure. But if they say, we don't really have anybody who makes good spaghetti, but somebody has a good ravioli or big ziti.
I can make spaghetti for everybody, Donna.
Exactly. If somebody says, all right, we'll give it a try. We'll give it a try. The spaghetti test has said, we still want to give something to this community, to these people. And that's the test. Some contexts are so far gone, they are not going to make it. And it's better to put them in hospice and let them go. But many, many, many more are ready to serve spaghetti and make a gift to their community. So let's go into your groups. Any questions or comments before we go into the groups?
Okay, so Kevin is going to explain how to go into your groups and what to do if you're the only person. We're separating by congregation, and what to do if you're the only person from your congregation.
Great. So I am hitting open rooms in a moment. And when I do that, you'll see a list of all of the different congregations. And what you'll want to do is just hover so you should see a list now, and you'll just hover your mouse to the right of your congregation's name and hit join on that room. If you're the only one here, just hang out in this room, and then we will pair you together if you're like the only person from your congregation. So, and if you're like on a single Zoom with other people in the room, you should still just go with them to that room. So
yeah, and you'll see these questions once you go into your room. You won't see this screen, you'll just see your group, but I've copied these questions into the chat, so please refer to that.
And if you can't answer all the questions, we don't expect you to prioritize questions. There'll be ways of telling about your groups, your congregations.
I see folks dwindling, so that's a good sign.
yeah, so I'm just gonna hold off quietly for a few moments, and then in like 1 minute, if you're having problems joining a room or are all by yourself, we'll go through it then. So
Kevin, we are going to be random. Don and I and Kate have access randomly, right?
So you and Donna can choose which rooms to join and move around. So when you're ready to join another room, you'll just hit leave room and then come back to the main one, and then you can join another.
Thank
Will
you.
I have that?
Seven,
will
I can't, I'm
will I
sorry.
have that same ability as well?
Yes, you'll also be able to move around. Hi, Diane.
I seem to be the only person who can't find a list of churches.
Oh, that's fine.
I don't see it
What
either.
congregation are you with?
Oh yeah, so it says, if you go down to where it says more and there are 3 dots.
Yep.
Then there's under record. Yep,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is Valerie Badrissing. I too cannot find it.
Okay, what room do you need to
good.
go to, Valerie?
St. Paul's United Hartsdale.
Okay, great. Cool.
Here I am. Oh, my name isn't there.
That's because you need to join the room. What
There
room
you
are you
go.
trying to go to, Diane?
I am here. Thank you.
Okay.
I cannot
Great.
find mine either. I also cannot find the 3 dots and the
Okay,
more.
what congregation are you trying to join today?
Corvallis, Oregon, First Congregational.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm moving you there now.
I have the same problem as Valerie.
Okay.
I don't see St. Paul's Hartsdale listed, and I don't.
Oh, is it St. Paul? Are you a United Methodist congregation or no?
Yes, yes.
Okay, it's that one. I will move you into that. Okay.
I'm also having the same problem.
Hi, hi Herma. What church are you with today?
St. Paul's United.
Okay, great.
Hartsdale.
Okay. And do we have anyone who's having trouble joining, or are people remaining kind of just the only representative from their congregation?
Kevin, could I join the first Austin
Yeah,
Austin
yeah.
room? It's
Of course.
Susan.
Yes, I hear you. Great. Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm here
Okay.
on my own, so I'm assuming I just said.
Oh,
Yeah, we're dwindling down now to to the
yeah,
ones.
so I see we just have you left, and yeah, you're the only singleton. So
I thought someone else was.
That's
you're
okay.
the-
If I can come back for the larger conversation later.
Yeah. Do you want to do some kind of self-reflection on these questions, or do you want to, Kate, how would you propose handling?
Valerie, are you there? I just saw Valerie. Oh, maybe she moved into a room.
That's okay. What I can do is I can look at these and think about them and then come back and listen to the larger conversation.
Okay.
At this point, I think my goal out of this is to gather observations rather than contribute. So I'm excited about that.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So we're going to come back at 2:30.
Okay.
And everyone's going to report out.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for doing that.
Of
Thank
course.
God you're here.
Okay, I'm gonna go on mute.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Herma.
I'm still out. I got blocked out. I had to re-log in.
Okay, so I'm gonna assign you, and you were with St. Paul's, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm assigning you now, and you should see something pop up on your screen, and you can click that to join it.
Okay.
Oh, it worked. Great. Okay.
Great. Okay, cool. All right. So is there any way to chat to them?
I can broadcast a message, but it doesn't it has to be short because it just
Can you
appears.
just say we're reconvening at 2:30? Because we didn't actually tell them
Oh.
the time. I mean, it says 30 minutes, but we didn't say what that meant to them.
Okay, so that will pop up, and I'll give them a warning at 2:15, 2:20,
Okay, that would be perfect.
2:25.
Oh, I
and
see.
then-
We will reconvene. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, are you going to move around or just hang out here?
I'm gonna hang out here.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to do work on my other monitor, but
Thank you.
let me know if you need anything.
Okay.
Stop it. Stop.
Hi, Pastor Jason. Hi. So we
Hi.
are currently in breakout rooms with our congregations. I'm just reviewing a few questions together.
Great.
What church are you with? And I can move you with your group if they're in.
Yeah, we Wicker Park Lutheran Church.
Okay, great. I will have you join them. Okay, great.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I had to duck out for a doctor's visit. Luckily, it's virtual.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right.
Okay, so the message should be appearing on your screen and you can join them there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Of course. Bye now.
Hi, it's me.
Hi, John Franco.
Kevin, I pressed the wrong button instead of letting
Okay.
I left. So,
Great. Where we just have like 90 seconds left. Do you just want to wait out here?
oh yeah, better we do
Okay.
that. Hi, Carla.
Hi.
Hi. Did you just leave a breakout room?
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna just hang out for another 90 seconds unless you want to head back in. But
I'm gonna make myself an espresso, Kevin, as you
okay.
guys gather the troops back.
Oh, I was by myself, so that's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, that's fine. Okay. Well, it's gonna be another like
No
2
problem.
minutes or so.
No problem. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so I'm hitting close rooms now, so people will trickle back in over the next 60 seconds.
Great.
Oh, actually 2 minutes apparently. But.
Okay.
Hi, welcome back, everyone. People are going to slowly trickle back over the next 2 minutes, so we'll just have a restful time while we wait for everyone to come back.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. So people are still trickling back from the breakout rooms. It should be another minute before everyone's all back.
Thanks, Kevin. And as folks are coming back, we'll just remind everybody to mute again.
Yeah. Okay, and this everyone should be back now. So great. Welcome back, everyone.
All right, Donna, do you want to take us through reporting back from everyone's small groups? Oh, I see Donna's not there, so I'm talking to her chair. So just wait a minute for Donna to get back, and then we'll be reporting back on your discussions with your congregations. I hope they were fruitful and that discussion was helpful. Like I said, I'll just wait 1 minute while Donna is probably getting something to drink. You can imagine nice hold music, nice relaxing hold music.
Okay, are we just about back?
Everybody's back, so if you want to lead us through the report back on folks' discussion, that would be great.
I think the important thing is that we try to use this half hour to hear everybody's voices again. And, the group work, it comes back to everybody, then everybody changes, you give an idea to somebody else, and it's a circle. And this process is going to be very circular. And what we hope is that a new ribbon of color and excitement comes into each circle. So it's, I'm sure you're all familiar with organic process, which is basically that you just keep moving slowly and in a kind of circle that becomes more dense and more full, because you're the leaders here and you've got a lot of people to think about. So who would like to share something from their group? I made it to 3 or 4, 3.5. Who's ready to say something? Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa from Rendell Memorial Presbyterian Church in Harlem, New York. And for the first question, how far is your closest Walmart? Well, we don't have any Walmarts at all. We're in New York, and big box stores are just not so much of a thing. The closest thing we have is a Costco. It's about 20 blocks away. The music program in the junior high, we have no idea. There's lots of fantastic musical choirs in the Harlem community, but we're not really tied into our local junior high and familiar with it in that way. Similarly, we don't have an idea of what the LGBTQ group is in the high school, but Rendell Church is an extremely LGBTQ friendly place, and we have made a lot of great strides in attracting younger members who are from the LGBTQ community. What is the average age of our membership? Well, we discussed this vigorously. Whether we're 60 plus, 70 plus. And we have some outliers either way, but I think we settled on 60 plus. Graph the races of your membership. I would say Harlem is a gentrifying African-American dominant community historically. We also have a large Latinx community that we share power with, if you want to say that politically. And the Latinx community is increasing. The African-American population is decreasing, and there is a gentrifying white and wealthy Black and Hispanic factor in our neighborhoods. We have a Foods at 125th Street, which is like, there's your gentrification symbol right there. I think we would stop there. What are the most beautiful places in your immediate area? Well, we decided that our church, Rendell Memorial Presbyterian Church, is the most beautiful place in our immediate area, but also the Apollo Theater, the beautiful row houses, particularly Strivers Row, areas like that, St. Nicholas Park. We've got a lot of good park space. We've got the Apollo Theater. We've got the City University of New York has a campus there, Abyssinian Church, and some of the largest and finest Black churches in the history of New York are in our neighborhood. What is the most fun place in your immediate area? We decided that Rendell was also the most fun place, but also Sylvia's Restaurant, the Apollo, the YMCA at 135th Street, the Schaumburg Library. We have a shower because we have a bed stabilization homeless shelter that houses 16 adults every night, 365 days a year. And we're the only place that can get a shower. How many people understand your budget? Everybody understands our budget to the extent that we are stable but living paycheck to paycheck. We do not have an endowment. We have a homeless shelter, or what the bed stabilization program it's called, and that does help us with our general operating expenses to a large degree, and we're very grateful for that, but also very proud of what we're doing for the community with the bed stabilization. Draw a picture of your immediate neighborhood without your congregation. Well, it would be a condo building or a apartment building, or some ugly big box of a building.
Right.
The spaghetti test was a little white for us, but we are big eaters at Rendell, and renowned for our eating and cooking and sharing and whatnot. We feel that we would pass the spaghetti test or the barbecue test or the fried chicken test. We feed the homeless in our bed stabilization, and when we feed the homeless, we don't feed them like junk. We purchase, part of our halo effect in Harlem is that we order from a well-known local restaurant, and I think any one of us would be pleased to sit down to a plate of that food. And so I think Rendell passes. I think Rendell passes. 3 people in our congregation that are true leaders, probably not people that you guys know, but of course, Reverend Flora, our pastor. We have a financial person named Shirley Brown, who's not on this call, unfortunately, but everyone agrees, true leader there. And I was also mentioned, I think it was mostly to convince me to answer these questions for you all. But what we decided was that the leadership characteristics that we lean on are committed, reliable people, visionaries, willing to give of their time, talent, and ties, theologically progressive, with a concern for mission and ministry to the community. And if anybody from my cohort, anyone from Rendell, want to add anything, feel free. That's it.
That was beautiful, Lisa. Thank you very much.
Just Donna, may I interact 1 second?
Please.
Unfortunately, time is a tyrant, right? And I don't think that every congregation can be so accurate like Lisa was, and so maybe you want to answer 2 or 3 main questions, so just so that everybody can speak. So that.
Yeah, agreed. I'm going to go around the room, and Pastor Lisa, how about you next?
Okay, in terms of our area, we have, as I said, we have been a very insular community. So we are trying very hard to explode past that. I don't know how successful we'll be. COVID has been a container of that. So I think one of the best assets we have, when you ask the question about what's the most beautiful place in your immediate area, we are situated on for the area, a very large plot of land. Part of it has sort of been a community garden, but I don't know that we've had any real affiliation with them other than just saying, here's the yard, go use it. And so one of the things that I've been trying to do, particularly in this COVID time, is to engage the congregation with putting an outdoor altar. We have a section of wall that when they built the building, for some banal reason, has artwork on it. And we could put very easily an outdoor altar there with seating there. And the addition to that, not just it being available for the times when we shouldn't really be gathered inside, but also to be as a place for the community to say, here's a place to come and pray. And so my hope is that we can get that going. With the interest of time and knowing what everybody else has got to say, that's where I'll stop.
Good, thank you. Let's see. Carla Griffin.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, so in the interest of time, I was by myself, but I want to do the spaghetti test. So we at NCC love to eat and we love to feed. And we get great participation from our congregation. Pre-COVID, we used to always have like a summer barbecue. And the men would just love to get out there and barbecue because in their eyes, they're the best barbecue in the world. And so we would have barbecues. Last year we had a parking lot service. And after the parking lot service, they had the grills and everything set up and we were able to have people go over for the hamburgers and hot dogs and all that good stuff. So no, we love to eat. So it's an excitement. People get really excited about it.
Yep, good. Good. Imani. Maybe Imani's not available right now.
I'm actually part of Rendell Church.
Oh, okay. Sorry, did not realize that. Thank you. And Violet, how about you?
You can be. I was really interested in the question about the different programs at the schools. And so we got a little carried away Googling things while we were sitting here and learning about our middle school music program and other connections here. There used to be a church down the road that had a tutoring program, but that closed because of COVID. So this has got us thinking about ways that we can better connect and serve the schools. And I'm hopeful that we can partner with our other two congregations in the building to do that because they've actually got school-age children. We've got maybe some school-age grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So we're gonna try to work through those networks, but I thought those were good questions.
Yeah. There's a lot of wonderful work being done with school music programs and congregations around the country. Thus the question. Let's see. Douglas Howard, how about you?
He's also from Rendell.
Oh, it's
I'm
Rendell.
also part of Rendell.
All right. You guys are doing much too well. All right, Pierre.
Is
Also Rendell.
Hi, yeah, also Rendell.
All right.
That's our whole group.
Going to Corvallis. I'm going to head to the West Coast and get out of Harlem. And Amiki. Or Bob.
Yes, we enjoyed all of the questions on your list. They were all thought-provoking, of course. The one that resonated with me the most was try to envision your neighborhood without your facility in it and what would be happening on those grounds in 10 years. And it was a pretty easy answer for us that it would be snapped up and developed for multi-unit housing. And I think for me, that then also is a major guideline about where we should be going with new uses for our building. Bob, do you want to add to that?
No, not much, except to say that the housing may be a bit different. On one side, we have private accompany development for university housing because we're not far from a university campus. And on the other side of us, we're probably going to have, we are going to have mixed housing and apartment development substantially. So we found ourselves talking about opportunities with that kind of thing going on around us. We weren't quite in agreement. Maybe it's not so much disagreement, but not really knowing whether we would have support sufficient to provide a free meal to young families who probably are going to be on both sides of us, actually. So that's a question we want to explore with some additional people in the congregation.
Good. Good. Let's see. Who would be next? Leah or Diane? Are you both in the same Seattle place? Okay, why don't you go ahead, Diane? You're lit.
The questions were really thought-provoking, and I will defer to Leah because she's the pastor. And I will defer to her.
Okay.
That's all right. Okay, Diane. So I'll invite if Karen or Diane have anything to add. We got really interested talking about how our area is a little bit different than the surrounding areas. And Fauntleroy, the Fauntleroy neighborhood of Seattle, is on the southern end of the West Seattle Peninsula. And our church specifically is within a 1/10 of a mile from the Fauntleroy Ferry that takes you across Puget Sound. This neighborhood itself is, while West Seattle is experiencing a lot of growth, and in the 6 years I've been here, I've gone from seeing neighborhoods of houses to neighborhoods of high-rise condos. Fauntleroy is holding off. It's the median house price here is $924,000. It's very expensive right here, but if you go a mile to the east, then the median house price drops by $500,000 or more. And people here just spend more money on housing in general, so that's actually a really significant amount. So thinking about how our community is and how our church represents that community is interesting, and what it's going to be like in 10 years kind of stymied us a little bit, or at least me. I don't know about them. Will we still be a community center? Will our community still be, there are tons of families, young families around here. Is that still going to be the case? Will people, will the wages like keep up with that? I think in 10 years, like our church will still be very much a community center. Everyone who lives around here calls it their church, even if they've never like been here in 50 or since their parents were here 50 years ago. But those are all really interesting questions for us as we think about that's the bowl in which all of our mission and ministry sits that we need to really think about. So we appreciate that.
Kate, you're gonna have to take over. I'm gonna go plug in my battery.
Well, we only have about 2 minutes left for this before our closing. So are there any congregations that we haven't gotten to yet that want to highlight, 1 or 2 questions each?
Hello?
I can share from First Austin.
I'm sorry, was it Reverend Leslie? Was that you first?
Good afternoon, everyone. What I found interesting, all the questions were interesting as everyone shared, but what I found particularly interesting for our congregation, we're in Westchester, New York, and our congregation doesn't look like our community, which I thought was, I'm a relatively new pastor there. I'm going on my 2nd year. And when we had to do the statistics, I forgot how it was questioned, but how does our community within the church
reflect outside, it really doesn't. Our congregation, we found out, is pretty much like 75% Black African American, but the community, all the communities around us, the percentage of Black persons living in the area, it was like under 20%. And so as we go forth to do ministry, you know, that's something I feel like we greatly have to consider. Who would be the families or the people that we need to be welcoming into the church? Because clearly they wouldn't necessarily look like us. And so we have to be mindful of when we're trying to investigate, what does our community need? Maybe we've been making assumptions that's a little bit off, because the assumptions had to do more with what we thought based upon who we are within the building, and not necessarily who the people outside the building truly are and what their needs may or may not be. So that was just a little enlightening for me, because I thought the numbers would have been a little closer. I thought we reflected our local community a little better than we actually do. So it just gave me another layer or something else to have to consider and think about when we, you know, a lot of times with churches, you want to do so much for, you know, the impoverished, food ministries, shelters and things like that. And that may not be a great concern or a big concern in the community that we currently dwell in. Not that it's not there, I'm clear it probably is, but we're not clear if, you know, we've been making assumptions around it, but it may not be as much as a need as we thought. And something more of a need might be, how do we reach out to those parents who need that parent night out? How do we bring maybe more activities to families that are looking for a safe or sacred space to go to do various activities and events than what we maybe were thinking about doing in regards to food distribution, homelessness, and stuff like that. So it was just enlightening for me. And it's something I never really thought to consider as much, because I was just being presumptuous to think, well, we reflect our community. And it's like, no, you don't. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to be giving you, to everyone, a mapping resource from one of our partners from Hartford Seminary that looks at different elements in your neighborhood and region that explores some of these questions more too, that might be helpful too, as well as diving into some of these other questions that you've already raised. As well, so we're all on the same page on this. So I just want to hand over to Carrie for our last point here before we move on to closing remark for the day.
Yeah, so I am from First Austin, and we are a downtown congregation. Most of our members don't live anywhere near our church. But I think after discussing all these questions, our group really ended up focusing on the asset that our congregation is, that our church values art. We have a black box theater, justice, equality, and racial reconciliation. And so I think we just see that we have this unique opportunity to attract people from populations that have been hurt by the church, namely the Baptist church, so that we can help them find a place that allows them to just be themselves, to find a safe place. And so I think for the most part, our congregation is ready to walk alongside people from all walks of life, and that we are curious to see how we can be creative to minister to others. And so for that, I'm very proud to be part of our congregation.
Thank you so much. All right, with our last 2 minutes we have, I don't know if Donna or John Franco, you want to say a couple final words before I introduce the closing comments for this.
I'm glad that you put up, Kate, the tribute to the Lilly Endowment. It's important reminding that this training and all these trainings that we're going to do for 4 or 5 years, I'm losing track, are funded by the Lilly Endowment. So it's important that we say that.
Okay, great. So this is day 1. And we're having another training tomorrow at the same time. I included John Franco and Donna's email addresses in case you want to reach out to them now or later. I'll be sharing them again tomorrow. You should also have them in your emails from previous emails that I've sent you. And I just wanted to go through really quickly some things that you should have received from us before now. First, I want to highlight again that we will have a staff person coming on starting next week. They'll be organizing this whole program. And you're the first training we've done. So if we've hit any bumps along the way, you're kind of our test run. So I appreciate you bearing with us on that. She'll be making everything run like a well-oiled machine from now on. But we have a Google Drive that is for all of you that has resources already on it, including videos from experts in different fields that you can check out. They're around 10 minutes each. Each cohort has its own folder. There is a contact sheet, not in the folders, in the main folder, not divided by cohort, that has contact info for everyone in every cohort, and then it'll be separated by cohort so you can see really clearly. If you have any questions, you should definitely reach out to Valerie, your coach. And as your projects move forward, please, as you're in touch with Valerie, please reach out to her for any technical assistance needs that you have. We'll really be able to provide you with all of that. One thing that we're hoping to do is provide you with pro bono legal assistance, because most, if not all projects, will need that as you start rolling forward on many parts of your journey. And if you were also developing a list of experts in your area that you can go to, like architects and other things like that. But really just let us know where you are and what you need. And that's what we're here for, to help you move your project forward, either something super specific like that, or just like, I'm having an issue with my congregation, I need to talk about it, or I'm having an issue with the community. Anything you need, we're here to help you move all the projects or ideas forward. And you have 2 trainings per year. You've halfway through the first one. So we're hoping that, you can have a monthly check-in with Valerie, and you'll be doing some work internally in your congregations to help move these projects forward. We're going to provide the assistance you need, but your congregation itself needs to propel this forward. And it sounds like you all have a really good idea of the kind of projects you want to engage in, which is really impressive and important work that you're all doing. It was really impressive and gratifying to see the kind of congregations that are involved in this cohort. So we just want to help you succeed in everything you want to do. So just let us know what you need. So yeah, with that, unless Valerie, Donna, or John Franco, you have anything to add, we can wrap up for today, and we'll see you tomorrow for, I can give you a preview as I take out my notes. John Franco is going to be talking about stewardship and asset mapping, and Donna is going to be talking about a theological reflection on love thy neighbor. So it should be really helpful and also really interesting. Does anyone have anything to add? Any participants or trainers?
Kate, I think and somebody asked if we are on the same link tomorrow.
We're not in the same link. The link is included in the calendar invitation for tomorrow. And I'll also shoot out an email again in the morning with another link. If you need anything, just shoot me an email. And I'll get right back to you. All right, great. Well, thank you everyone so much for being here today. And we're really excited to share this journey with you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.